Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. This week, we're going across the pond, the lake, the sea again, because my guest this week is Kasia, and she runs the Etsy shop NoAndEl. And Kasia is based in Melbourne, Australia, and she's woken up really, really early her time to have this conversation with me. And Kasia, I'm very grateful that you did this. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Gemma. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you for being my guest. And I think we've been chit-chatting, so I know you're wide awake now.
Yes.
But I know it's really early over there now. So thank you.
But like I told you, it's going to be good practice for me. So good stuff.
Yes. Well, do you want to say why it's good practice?
Yes, I'm expecting baby number 3 end of July. So even though my kids tend to get up early, but this will be going back to basics, getting up early or in the middle of the night, which I'm usually good at, but I just haven't had to do it for a while. So This is a good preparation for it.
Okay, well, I'm glad to be part of your new baby drill exercise.
Lovely.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I actually have a question about that. So your Etsy shop is NoAndEl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mesh of your 2 kids' names now.
Yes, Noah and Ella.
Right. So what's going to happen when baby number 3 comes?
I might have to open another shop. No, I don't know. To be honest with you, we haven't given it much thought name-wise yet. So okay. I don't know. I think NoAndEl will stay NoAndEl, and we'll see if I can incorporate new babies into something somehow.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So, Kasia, before we start, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you? I mean, now we know you're having baby number 3, so I think we know quite a bit already, but
Sure.
Just a little background.
Sure. So I live in Melbourne on a beautiful peninsula, and it's lovely here. You cannot help but be inspired because it's got a very artistic sort of bohemian surfy vibe here. There's a lot of crafty people, a lot of markets. So we really enjoy living here. We live close to the beach. I've got a husband, my 2 older kids, and yes, baby number 3. And I have the shop NoAndEl, and that's sort of my it started off as a hobby, but it's now my beautiful part-time job. And then I've got another business that I run from home, which is also my bread and butter business at the moment. But yes, and we have 3 guinea pigs, which I promised my daughter I'm going to mention that we have them because they're part of the family.
Do they have names?
Yes, they're 3 boys, Pepsi, Theodore, and the 3rd one is Oreo.
Wow, I had a dog named Pepsi.
Yeah, well, this one, because he's got red eyes, so my daughter named him Pepsi. Not that she's ever had anything to do with drinking or anything Pepsi, but it just somehow... That was the name that she chose. So, yes. So we're very happy living here. We're trying to do the whole slow living and just being in the moment and enjoying our beautiful beaches. And, yes, I knit and crochet in between.
Oh, very nice. So why Etsy, and when did Etsy first get on your radar? Because you were already running your what's your main bread and butter business right now? So when did Etsy enter the picture, and why did you decide to open a shop and pursue that as well?
Etsy, I think I met and fell in love with Etsy in 2010. So way before I had any other businesses. I think I was really into decoupage back then. I don't know if you know, Gemma, what decoupage is.
Yes, but please explain.
Okay, because not many people know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so decoupage, basically, the short note of it is, decoupage is sticking on images onto objects and furniture, and then you varnish it several times, like 20 odd times, and that creates it, makes it look smooth, and basically it looks painted on. But the images have to be either made of special paper or a napkin, like really high quality napkins. And so I couldn't find either here in Australia. So I remember I Googled it, and Etsy popped up, and I was just blown away because there were so many overseas sellers that were selling decoupage. And it was so hard. And so I started ordering, but then like I got into the whole quit your day job and featured seller sections, and I just connected. I'm like, I'm home. This is it. For the longest time, I wanted to, have my own business and do something. And, when I read their stories, I was like, oh my God, Etsy is for me. This is my place. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, Gemma, but like a few years ago, Etsy was very quirky, and there were a lot of artistic sort of people who would have these shops, and often I read their stories, and they would be traveling in their vans and making things, or like it was a bit different. And I was just, to me, that's my place, that's where I need to be. So in 2010, I think I opened a shop. I haven't given it much thought, but I just thought, I'm going to open it. I'm going to go with decoupage since I'm making it anyway. And to be honest, before Etsy, I did it, like for me, for friends, to sell at markets a little bit, just so I can make some money to, just so I can keep this hobby going. So with Etsy, I just go, I need to have a shop. I don't care how or what, and I just happen to have all this decoupage stuff. I'm just going to go with that. So yeah, 2010 is when I met Etsy and fell in love with it.
It's so funny that you say that, because that's kind of how I stumbled on Etsy as well. I went for, I mentioned to you, I love garage sales and estate sales too. And I went for one, and I saw these old sewing patterns, the ones where they used to hand illustrate the drawings of the dress or whatever it was that the sewing pattern was for. And so I picked up some because I wanted to do decoupage with the envelopes where they had drawn the designs on. So
yes, that would be beautiful.
Yes, and similar to you, that I started digging around, like, let me get some ideas, and that was how I discovered Etsy, was because I was trying to do this decoupage project with these hand illustrated sewing pattern envelopes.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Because not many people know, like still now you tell people decoupage, I've got all these beautiful napkins, and no one knows what decoupage is, but I think it's just
kind of a dying, I don't know if it's dying, it's just unusual. Yeah, not many people know about it.
Hasn't caught on yet properly.
Hasn't caught on yet. And it's been around for a while, which is wild.
Yes, I know. And I remember even when like wanting to run workshops or whatever, or even at markets, people are like, what? How did you paint this on? And I'm like trying to explain the process, you know. But yes, decoupage, I'm so happy to hear that someone outside of me knows about decoupage.
And I think it might not be for anyone who is listening and considering starting an Etsy shop. It might not be one of those categories that's very saturated, only because one, it's time consuming to create, anything where you're going to do decoupage, because there's, it takes a while to make it. You have to do a layer and wait, and then do something else and then wait. So it does take some time, but at the same time, you can charge a bit more than, most other products, because it's so labor intensive and it's so unique and
so niche.
Yes, it's so niche. So if you have the inclination to learn how to do it and you still don't really know what you want to sell, look into that and see if you have the time and the inclination for it. Okay, so that was your first Etsy shop, and that was 2010. What happened to that Etsy shop?
I think it wasn't going too well. And I think it was probably because I treated it really like a hobby. So I closed up probably after a year. I still did markets and stuff, and I couldn't work out why when I took the stuff to the market and people could touch it and feel it, and see it, they were buying it, but online they didn't. And it's taken me a few years to work out. It was the pictures and just everything was, it was just sort of slapped on, and there was no thought process that went into it. So I burnt out, I think, because I wasn't getting anywhere, and I closed shop probably end of 2010 or beginning of 2011. Mm-hmm. And so between then and now, I had about maybe 2 different shops. I think I changed the name of one. I think that decoupage one, I ended up changing it and making, like kids. I started sewing kids' clothes. Then I did hand sewn accessories like, berets or hair clips or flowers for flower girls. Mm. Anything, any crafty thing that you can think of, I've probably done it. I've probably tried to turn it into a business because that's me. Yeah. And I was so desperate to just, start a shop that, I enjoyed the whole crafting process, but I never took it to the next level and actually focused on the business part. Mm. So from then, I had my son in the meantime, and I've started my business that I have now, my bread and butter business. Mm. And because I started focusing on treating it like a business, because I knew that when my son goes to school, we had this agreement with my husband that, we'll need a second income. So I will either have to go back to work somewhere or I'm going to have to make it work. So I was really, really trying hard to get this business off the ground, and I did all the right things. So my current bread and butter business was going really well, and then I opened NoAndEl in 2014, and I started knitting and crocheting with robe, homewares, a little bit of weaving, some, kids' accessories like scarves and stuff. And it was, again, all over the place. Anything that I wanted to make, I basically popped it into my shop. Mm. And I think I've diluted my brand again. So I didn't make many sales. So I closed that shop for the time being, and I really focused on my main business, and I just wanted to get it off the ground to make sure that in 2 years when my son goes to school, it's there, and I'm making at least a part-time job out of it. So but then in 2016 or 15 to 16, because we've got summer here in January. Yeah. I started making things for my kids again. I picked up knitting, crocheting, and I was making things. And I thought, it would be so lovely to open NoAndEl and maybe just really give it a good go and take what I've learned from my current, bread and butter business and put it into NoAndEl and just really focus on, a particular niche. So I spent the first half of 2016 when I opened up NoAndEl again, really on the business side. And yes, by the end of 2016, I started seeing, how it's paying off. And it was just perfect timing.
So, Kasia, what would you say are some of the specific business-related tasks that you made sure to focus on for your Etsy shop, that you were translating from what you had done with your, physical business to this online one? What are some specific things that you focused on that you feel for your other shops, or even before closing down NoAndEl, you weren't focusing on, that made a difference when you came back and really paid attention to that?
I think with all the other businesses, the biggest mistake I think I've made was that I really treated it like a hobby. So my idea was, I really enjoy decoupage, I really enjoy knitting something, and I think other people will love it too. So I'm just going to pop it in there. As soon as I made it, I took quickly photos, popped them in my shop. And like I didn't really focus on taking good photos. I didn't really, I was putting on basically everything and anything into my shop. And since then, I've learned that basically you have to be very intentional when it comes to your business. Like, to make the leap from hobby to business, you have to be very intentional. You have to do your homework, so you have to work out what your why is. You have to work out your niche. I think a niche is really important. And ideal client. So, those are the three main things that I focused on. Of course, there's the whole creating a brand, which I'm still working on, so I can't say too much about because it's a work in progress. But those three are the main things. And then, of course, things like photos, which I read so many things about, like how to take good photos and stuff, but I just could never make it happen. So I outsourced them. That was one thing. I outsourced it to brand reps. But yes, mainly I think the difference between a craft hobby is that if I feel like making a weaving today, or I feel like making jewelry today or whatever, I can do it and I can either give it to someone or whatever. But, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And you should definitely not pop it into your shop, because people who will come to your shop won't know what you're selling. They'll just see this abundance of random products. Nothing ties them in together. So, yes, I spent a good first half of 2016, I think, really obsessing about my niche and really focusing. And I was trying to go as micro as I possibly can. And I think I'm there. I could possibly do better, but I feel like it's because I'm getting a good response. I feel like I'm on a good path with that.
Okay. So I like that you decided to niche down. Because that does help you to market better, I would imagine. If you have a very specific product for a very specific audience, then you know who you're talking to. So today in NoAndEl, what do you specialize in selling?
So I specialize in chunky knits that are vintage inspired but have that bohemian feel. So I do basically baby knitwear, but newborn photo props and patterns. So even though they're three different things, but the thing that ties them all together is that they're very simple designs. They all sort of involve chunky yarn in some way, or rope sometimes. And I only create designs for newborns to 12 months. Okay. So that's my niche. I try to go down because obviously there's a lot of knitters, a lot of crocheters out there. Yeah. And to stand out, you really have to find something that will be very specific, I feel, or maybe use a fiber that's very unique to you. So let's say I would say I'm only going to work with t-shirt yarn, and that's going to tie in everything. So then you can do your homewares or, accessories or baby stuff. But the one thing that binds it all together is that you're using fabric yarn, right? Yeah. So for me, the thing is that I create very simple, chunky designs. My patterns are very basic, very simple. I want moms who are either expecting or maybe have a baby and they just want to, whether they're new to this or whether they're learning how to knit or crochet, I want them to pick up my pattern and whip it out in a couple of hours or maybe a weekend and have the end result. So yeah, so basically knitwear for babies newborn to 12.
Okay. Yeah, that's very specific. But I see how you're tying it all together. So now you came back, you had your niche, you decided to focus more on the business aspects because you had seen how that worked in your offline business. But now you're running two businesses. So let's talk about how you manage your time, because I know someone listening out there is probably working a regular 9 to 5 or a third shift, maybe overnight shift, and then also running an Etsy shop. So for you, what does your typical day look like, and how do you divide up how much time and when you spend that time growing your Etsy business?
Sure. I think for me, the difference is I don't my other job, which is still my own business that I run from home. So I do eyelash extensions, and for me, the difference is I don't have to answer to anyone. So I can kind of design my week the way to suit either or both businesses. So there's definitely no work balance, but I think working for myself, having my own business is the best work-life balance I can have, because if I have a really swamped week with clients, then I know any creating, any making for my shop has to happen at night time, for example, or work around this. But basically, I'm not very good with routines and schedules, which is, I think, why I hate going to work, for someone. But at the same time, I'm really good setting myself a routine, and I'm really good with going with my own routine because I know it's flexible. If I need to change something, I can do it. So Tuesdays, for example, is my day when I write my blog post and I would list anything that needs listed or take photos. My little one is, so my oldest is, Ella is in grade 3, so she's at school till 3. And then my son is in kinder Tuesdays, Thursdays and Fridays and Wednesdays. So most of those days he's not home. So I've got at least 5 hours of work that I can get done. So Tuesdays I do my blog post, and every second week I do my mailing list. My creating, like making new products, has to happen around my clients. So if I have clients during the day, like I said, I do it in the evening, unless I have orders. Then I work, even weekends or something, if I have to. But my kids know it's usually with knitting and crocheting, it's kind of easy because I can do it in the car or when I'm waiting for my kids to do after school activities. So if I'm waiting, I just do that as well. So yes, I just structure it around my family, around my clients at the moment. And that's the good thing, because we have that flexibility when it's a shop. So even though my other business, it takes sometimes more of my time, but at the same time, it's really just the way I schedule clients. So I can either create a really busy week for me, or I can say, you know what, I've got only 2 days of work this week, so I can, focus on Etsy.
Right.
So it's very flexible, which I love. I love that.
So then, Kasia, on the flip side, because both your businesses are home-based, you make your own schedule, you determine what you're going to do and when. Do you find that sometimes your business and work flows over into personal life and personal time? Or do you make a clear demarcation, like say after a certain hour of the day, no more work? Well, with the client-based work, that's easy because you obviously won't be scheduling people after a certain hour. But with online work, like running an Etsy shop, you can do that just any time of the day. You can be listing at any time. You can be creating at any time, answering your convos at any time. Do you cut yourself off after a certain hour and say, okay, no more work, it's now family and personal time? Or does everything just all blend?
With my eyelash business, it used to really, because as soon as I saw a message, even if it was 11 p.m., I would answer it. If I had only 2 days scheduled where I work, but someone could only make another day that's not really typical for me to work, I would schedule them in. And then that left me with little time to focus either on Etsy or my family or whatever. So I'm getting better at scaling it back. The other thing is also that I haven't mentioned is, so with eyelash extensions, it's quite common that when you work with this glue, you may develop an allergy, which is what happened for me about almost 2 years ago. So I knew that at some point I won't be able to work as much. I have to scale back anyway, which is why I'm trying to focus a bit more on NoAndEl and kind of up that a little bit more and scale back on the lashings. When it comes to family time though, with Etsy, when I get a conversation, even if I'm in bed, especially if it's from someone across the world, I always try to answer straight away, because I'm thinking, not everyone's aware of time differences and stuff. And, it's a little bit different than with clients who are here and in the middle of the night, remember, they need to book in lashes. But, but with Etsy, and I guess because one of the values that I value in my business is good customer service. So I want to make sure that anything is answered, any questions, and then I write them down, so I know that's obviously something that pops up quite often. But yes, I focus with the knitting, creating. I can do it anytime. My kids are so used to seeing me knit and crochet, whether we're watching a movie or whether I'm waiting for them somewhere in the car, or, they're used to it. With any work that needs, like, let's say, school holidays, if I still need to do a blog post, I just say to my kids, look, guys, give me an hour. I'm going to finish this and then we can go and play or do whatever. So I find that's the flexibility that I love. The thing I need to learn to do even better is scaling back on my other business, just to, not answer convos, after, let's say, 5 p.m. or something, like with my clients, or not schedule them into days that I'm not technically working. So, which I think will be good when the baby comes. I think that will kind of naturally work itself out. But I think the biggest thing is the flexibility that I can, if I want to, and I do get sucked into Etsy sometimes more than
no, trust me,
especially the
I
making.
know how that goes. Yeah, I know how it goes.
So, but my kids are used to seeing this, and at the end of the day, I think it's great role modeling for them. My daughter is getting interested in the whole selling on Etsy things, and she comes to markets with me. Yeah, so she's into that, and I think it's great for that. Yeah. But I think the most important thing is I'm here for them. They know where I'm there to pick them up. If they're sick, it's going to be me who's going to come. So the bigger picture is that, I am here for my family, for my kids, and we just make everything else work. Mornings are hectic because we're always looking for clothes or looking for something. It's always hectic, there's nothing organized about that. But once they're out the door and I know I've got 2 or 3 hours, I can jam and work. Yeah. So make it work every day.
As if you weren't doing enough, Kasia, you also do workshops, and I want to talk about that because I think you were doing something, I shouldn't say are doing something really creative. And for anyone who's listened to the podcast, if you recall, I had a conversation in September of 2016 with Marie Segaris, and she's the creative yarn entrepreneur. And we were talking about her book. And it's called Make Money Teaching Crochet, Launch Your Business, Increase Your Side Income, Reach More Students. And one of the things we were talking about was how, as a creative entrepreneur, if you have a skill and your craft, you can actually make additional money, not just selling the crafts you make, but then also teaching other people the craft that you're good at, that you're very skilled in. And I say all that to say, Kasia, you're doing that. You run workshops that where you teach people how to crochet, or you'll do like a particular pattern, and you hold these workshops. And I noticed that you were selling slots for the workshop through your Etsy shop. So how does that work? How did you get the idea to do that? It never occurred to me to sell workshop seats through Etsy, but it makes perfect sense because people would come to Etsy looking for, creative, not just to buy something, but if they want to learn as well, because, they're the supplies too. So why not look for someone who is making money selling their crafts to teach you? So can we talk about that? How did all that come about?
So I really started the idea of running workshops this year, and it was basically, all right, so let me just say, I'm an introvert. I love the fact that I can do things over the internet. I don't like socializing too much with people, but it's one of these things where feel the fear and do it anyway kind of thing. It's been on my radar. I've really wanted to do workshops for a while just to test it, just to see. And obviously it'll be a nice addition to my patterns because then obviously you can introduce your patterns, and sort of people who attend your workshop are more likely to then purchase the next pattern as well, I thought, because they already know how my patterns work. So I had it all in the plans, and basically it all started with, I found this beautiful little coffee place, a local coffee place that likes to support local crafters, makers.
Okay.
And so I've organized that with them. I just picked a time. I thought I'll just put it in a time, and so that's how it all started. So I put in a time in my diary, and then so I have a website where I had the workshops advertised as well. I advertised it in my new newsletter. But the thing is, again, I've learned over the years that I send everyone now to Etsy. That's my shop now. So even through my website, if you clicked on the picture, it would take you to Etsy, to the listing. Okay. And the way I got the idea from is I just basically Googled workshops on Etsy, just to see if anyone else is doing workshops via Etsy, like listing them. And there were quite a few. So I thought, okay, so that's okay. That's a go. And because, like I said, I direct everyone to Etsy, to my Etsy shop now, it just made sense to me to just list it there. Yeah. And then people purchase, the listing, and that secures the spot. So then I get, all the details, and it's all in one place. It's seamless. It just goes through. I did advertise in like the local mum Facebook groups, and just some groups that I'm part of on Facebook that I knew that would be of interest.
Yeah.
But again, I directed them all to Etsy. So I said, if you don't have an Etsy shop, you can contact me and stuff. But mainly I was directing them to the Etsy shop. I've created, obviously, like I've done, when you put your quantities, I've put like, I don't know, we had 5 seats left or whatever. So I would put 5 quantity times 5. Just created the pictures. There was no postage, no nothing. And then it was just so easy. It was just really easy. And so all of my bookings were going through Etsy, and we had the knitting, we had the crochet shop. I've learned so much, and because for my eyelash business, I also train for a college and I teach students. So I'm like, I do that, and I always, every time I train someone, I always learn so much more, because you have to explain it to them. Yes. Sometimes it's something you forgot. Yeah. You know how they say the best way to learn it is to teach people. Mm-hmm. Yes, I thought, I really need to step outside of my comfort zone and just do the workshops, and I feel really good because so I've had a couple now, and I think I want to go more specific now. I think I would like to do for a specific thing now, like either crocheting with rope or homewares, a particular thing. So because I've had requests for that as well during the workshops, but it was really good for me. It gave me personal growth. I've met lovely ladies. I think they were happy with it because I got really positive comments back. So I can highly recommend it.
When you get those comments back, don't forget to put like on your website. And I'm going to link to Kasia's website. It's NoAndEl.com. That's NoAndEl.com. I'll have a direct link to that. You can check out her workshops page. But when you get those positive testimonials, don't forget to add those to that page, just so people hear what other people are saying about that. But that aside, one of the things I wanted to mention too was a benefit that I see, an advantage of selling your workshop seats through Etsy is you don't have to worry about getting a third party vendor to take money, like to take people's payments if you send them to your Etsy shop, which I think is brilliant, because not only are you sending them to your shop, but then they'll get to browse around and see what else you're selling, maybe buy something or what have you. But I think sending them to your shop is, especially when you're just starting out and doing this and still trying to see if it will work, is a good way to bootstrap it and not spend too much trying to learn a new technology for getting a payment gateway system in place on your website when, hey, Etsy is there, just do it. And like you said, I didn't know you could sell workshop seats, but
well, I think you
it
can.
works.
I saw others. And I did think actually with the pattern coming out whether I need to put it there. But when I looked at other sellers, they just had it in their shops. I thought, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not going to be the only one in trouble then.
Yes.
But yes, and you know, Jama, I've started really directing people to my Etsy shop. Even if it's a local mom that wants to buy something, I just go like, you know what, just go to my shop, purchase it from there, because the mistake I did was, I live on Instagram and that's where I am. But often people will contact me, DM me on Instagram, I love, the leg warmers or whatever. Can I purchase them? And I was too scared to send them to my Etsy shop because what if they get lost on the way? Because I thought they might get lost, and then what if they never make it there and I lose the sale? So I was like, I just wanted to grab the sale right then and there. So I'm like, cool, you know what? Send me your email, we'll PayPal it or whatever. Okay. And then I was thinking, you look at my shop. I've opened technically 2014. I mean, it doesn't say anywhere that it's relaunched really.
Yeah.
But for 2014, I'm like, I've got like hardly any sales, and I know feedback as well, but feedback is a whole separate issue. But, like the sales, I'm like, I'm so silly. I need to send them. And you know what? If they make it to the shop, if they really want it bad enough, they'll buy it.
Yes.
And I was really surprised because actually a lot of the people were going to my Etsy shop from, migrating from Instagram. So they did find a way there, and they did get it, and they saw it all there, and they came back sometimes with some questions and stuff. But it was just, I was so silly. I just wasted all this time making sales on Instagram.
Well, at least you figured that out, number one.
Yes.
And the other good thing about that is about sending people somewhere, whether it be your Etsy shop or maybe one day you'll have, an e-commerce. Maybe one day you'll have your own shop integrated onto your website, wherever, but sending them to a place where they get to see everything that you're selling, where if ever they want to buy again, they know where to go back to, is a good idea. I think nowadays on Instagram, people are getting, it's so common now for people to be
directed to
Etsy. Be directed to Etsy, because Instagram is where people are looking, and then if something catches their eye, then you can send them to Etsy too, because there is also the risk of saying, okay, email me, I'll send you my email, my PayPal email account, or send the money to my PayPal email account. Some people might not feel comfortable with that, because hey, this is just somebody's feed on Instagram, which, Instagram hasn't been known to be sketchy yet, but still, you want them to have a place that they keep going back to where they know they can buy, because, on Instagram, they see it one time, that could be it, that you've made it. So, well, I'm glad you got over that. And there's probably somebody else who is feeling the same way. Like, I don't want them to get lost along the way or get distracted by other products on Etsy, because Etsy is a marketplace, and they might put it in their shopping cart and decide to look around and then never go back and finish the transaction. There is that risk, which is why
it didn't happen really.
Which is good, especially when you have determined buyers, they're going to follow through with the sale. But that's also an argument for one day down the road having your own place on the web, so that when you send people to your own place, they're focused. It's your shop. There are no distractions. There aren't, 1,000 other people selling, a similar item. But that's not for now.
Yeah. No, well, my website, because that's a funny thing, because on Instagram, how you can have that one link. So I have my website, and now I've got I changed the link depending on what I'm sort of posting about. But
I do the same
I have the shop. But I have the shop thing, and it takes them directly to the shop. And I think my worries about them getting lost on the way to Etsy or at Etsy were basically because I didn't have that clear understanding of my brand and ideal client. But now I know, what? If someone wants to purchase those leg warmers from me and I'm sending them to Etsy shop, to my Etsy shop, they'll go there with the intention to purchase it because they already are, my ideal client. We've developed that connection over Instagram, where they're getting to know me, and that's probably why they're coming to me. They like what they see. So, it's just a different frame of mind. Like, when you are clear about who your ideal client is and, what your brand is and what you stand for, then I think people are more likely to go and buy from you as opposed to, they don't get distracted that easily and just go to a random shop on Etsy that they have never, they might like something, but I found that, there's no, they just go straight seemingly into my shop. And like I said, it's all done in the background, the payment, it's all safe, it's all secure. But they're already my ideal clients. So I was just silly in thinking that, I'm going to lose them. I got to close the deal now, like a sleazy car salesman. I got to make the sale now. And because I think also a lot of people used to sell on Facebook and Instagram, that was a thing. And so I think a lot of customers were used to that. If I like something on Facebook or Instagram, I'm just going to message them or I'm going to comment, I want this, and so I don't miss out on the product that I want to buy. But I think it's all changing now, and like I said, I'm really happy with my Etsy store, and it's hooked up to my website, and it's beautiful. There's no learning curve for me. I don't have to hook anything up. So for now,
and I think you're going about it the right way, because in the beginning, especially when you're learning and you're growing and you're trying to grow your brand and your business, it's so much better to just keep it simple. Don't get caught up with, technology or trying to put in all the bells and whistles that other people who are further down the road might have, because those things can be stumbling blocks for someone who's just starting out. Perhaps not you, but, someone else who's just starting out and wants to come out with a big bang. Sometimes that's not the wisest thing when you're in the beginning stages. Sometimes you just want to build your brand, let people get to know you, get to know your product, get to develop an affinity for your product. And then once you have that stable base, then you can start adding the bells and whistles. And I'm kind of talking to myself too, because I started off really just, like, okay, let me just keep it simple as I learn. And then, as I start to get ideas for doing more things and bigger things, it's like, okay, let me figure out how to do this next thing that I want to do. And Kasia, you're an inspiration for me, because I know I mentioned to you that I've been it's in one of the folders of things to do in my mind, to do a live workshop. And just, the logistics of it were really I was getting all bogged down with the logistics. Like, well, where am I going to advertise and how am I going to find people? And Etsy is this international marketplace and I'm one person in one location. What's the point? But, I guess
overthinking.
Huh?
No, do you know what? Oh, I'm just saying sometimes we overthink things. That was me. That's why I was putting it off. And then it really started with me just plopping some dates into my calendar, and I'm like, okay, this is when it's going to happen. Obviously, I had to alter it a little bit because I had to go with the venue as well. Like she couldn't do during the day, so I had to change it to evening. But then if you're part of groups, I'm part of this other business group, and there's a lot of mompreneurs in there. So I actually asked them what time would suit you for a workshop. If you were really into this workshop, and you really wanted to attend, and what would be better, morning, afternoon, evening. And a lot of them said evening, like, after 7 or whatever, when the kids are in bed or fed or whatever, and they feel okay about leaving them. And so that was a clue for me, because I thought during the day, you've got kids at school or whatever, kinder, so just come for a couple of hours during the day. And it turned out that actually when I asked around, it was the evening. So and then I just found local groups that I'm part of that had my ideal audience in there, moms. We have this sort of Peninsula Mums group here, and it's got like 10,000 people, and every Wednesday you can advertise your business. So I just advertise there on I think a friend's podcast as well. She let me advertise my workshop there as
Nice.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really nice. So even for you, Jama, I think even though your workshop would be a local, well, damn it, and I couldn't attend it, but I think like, you have probably local Facebook groups, whether you're part
Yeah.
of them, join, and just advertise it, but send them all to your, let's say, Etsy
Etsy
shop,
shop. Yeah.
if that's where you want to place your thing, because it's just so easy. And then they purchase it. And in the listing, you outline everything, all the details. My email was at the bottom. So I'm like, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll send you a reminder, a few days before.
Right.
And it was just so easy. So I think I kind of winged it with them.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
at least you did it, and that's what impresses me so much. When I in my head I think, oh, I want to do this, that, and the other, and then I turn around and somebody's actually doing it. I'm like, see, somebody else is doing it. It can be done. Yes, don't overthink
I think
it.
don't overthink. Just put dates in your calendar, and even if you have to adjust them a bit, but at least for me, if it's on paper, it's serious. It's business,
Yeah.
Whereas if I don't put it down in my calendar, it's just wishful thinking, and I'm just dreaming about it, but I'm not actually doing anything. So that's my actually action is my word for the year. Apart from slow living, action is the word that I'm like constantly repeating in my head. I gotta do it, not just think about.
Yeah.
It's like the podcast with you, I would be petrified, to go on a podcast, but I'm like, you know what? Smell the fear and do it anyway.
I like that line.
It's lovely.
Smell the fear.
Oh, it's my
and do it
favorite. I
anyway.
keep telling my kids all the time, like you feel the fear, but you do it anyway. And whether it's good or bad, you always will learn something from it.
Yeah.
So, you
Yes,
never
so
fail.
true. So Kasia, you're using social media in a great way, because you're making social media work for you. You're not just using it to say, oh, look at my next pretty thing I just made. You're using social media to make money. You're selling your products and sending people to your Etsy shop. Do you primarily just focus on Instagram, or do you do the same thing on Facebook? Because I know that you have a Facebook page for your business.
Yes. But if you go to my Facebook page, it only has like a handful of people, because Facebook is pretty much dead to me, to be honest with you. It is, because I can't work this little bugger out since they've changed everything. So, which is kind of ironic, because for my eyelash business, that page is the main sort of source of clients, and I can work that, like I get clients constantly. But for NoAndEl, Facebook hasn't been quite working for me. But Instagram, I love Instagram. And like I said, I live there pretty much all the time. I'm posting. I've got beautiful brand reps who sent me heaps of photos, which was so good. When I was first pregnant, I was so sick, and I was like, oh my God, if it wasn't for them, my Instagram would probably be covered in dust and spider webs, because I had nothing. Like I couldn't take photos, nothing. But but thanks to my brand reps, I've got beautiful photos. Occasionally you'll see the awkward selfie or work in progress or something. Yeah. I've learned that as long as you show your hands, it's still good. People are still getting that connection. You don't always have to show your face. It can be like your hands or, I have a friend, she's a photographer, and she always says to me, like, even if you take a photo from behind or whatever, and I'm like, how? I need like a photographer with me all the time. These Instagram accounts, and it feels like they always have a photographer with them because they have all these amazing photos walking down the street. And so I go like, I'm training my kids now to take photos, but often you will see one that's got my head cropped or something that's done by them, but they're getting better. But Instagram is just, I think the most important thing is having really lovely photos. I can't say that a cohesive, structured feed is my thing. I know a lot of gurus recommend doing that. But I get bored when I have all white backgrounds and stuff. So then I feel like, oh, I want to put a bit of wood in there or change the colors. So my feed is really just me. Like, just, it's not cohesive. There's no recipe to it. I don't, like how some people say they do 2 photos and then a quote or, something like that. I tried that, but I get bored with it, or it's too much pressure. But I feel like a lot that has helped me is the brand reps, because their photos are obviously what my customers are connecting to. Because it's babies, and anytime you put a baby in your news feed, in your Instagram feed, it always gets lots of beautiful
likes. Get ready for the loves and the likes,
Yes. So till my baby comes, I think my brand reps are just, I don't think I would have such a lovely Instagram account without them. And then pods. I've joined pods as well.
Instagram pods.
Yes. So they're sort of like Facebook groups, but they're on Instagram. And you can, like, I've got pods for my brand reps. So basically I've got them all in there so I can let them know, I'm sending you stuff or, anything. I can communicate with them at once there. But also I'm part of pods that are like, let's say there's a collective of us moms with products that complement each other. And so we have this rule, let's say we post, you post a photo and then you send it to the group, and then we go there and we comment. And as long as your comments is genuine, so you don't just go, whoa, love this, for no reason, or, just emojis. Try and be genuine, but we comment on each other's posts. And that I've noticed brings my post to the foreground a bit more. So I get more likes and more comments and engagement. And that's what I want. I don't necessarily care so much about the likes, but I want engagement. I want people engaging, asking questions. And I find even sometimes the moms from that pod will say, like, oh, that's great. Do you have it in this size? And then I answer, and then, so then they can, someone else who was maybe thinking that question knows, oh, okay, she does them in all these different colors or different sizes. So yes, Instagram pods I can highly recommend. And hashtags, I think. Hashtags are very...
hashtags for sure. Now, Kasia, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. The one thing I do want you to go back and explain. I know we've talked about it before on the podcast, but brand reps on Instagram. For anyone who is just beginning and maybe also struggling with their photography, that might benefit from having a brand rep. Can you just explain how you found yours and how the process works?
Sure. So I know that you can find them by just putting the search out there, but because from talking to other moms who use brand reps who had bad experiences, I was sort of a bit wary of doing that. So instead, and I cannot remember now, but there's an account, there's several probably accounts, but there's one account that I use that actually finds them for you. So the brand reps have to pay to be a member of that, to be on the list, and then you don't pay anything as the one hiring them. I can't remember. I'll find the name and I can tell you. It's something Scout, Rep Scout maybe. Anyway, so this account finds and sends you some brand reps, and then you pick whether you like them or not. The reason I sort of chose to go that way was because in my head it felt like if the brand reps, if the moms are signing up and they're willing to pay to be on that list, then obviously they're serious about it. They're not just after free stuff and you never hear from them. And I did. So I've got beautiful brand reps that I found through that Instagram account. But then I also did my own search because for my newborn photography props, I like to use, obviously, newborn photographers. And I've got actually a client that comes to me, and she's a newborn photographer, and I've given her stuff, and she's taking beautiful photos. And I like the fact that we were chatting, and, we can always I see her, I know her. And she recommended this newborn photography group on Facebook, and she goes, hey, if you need any more, if you want to sell, just go there. So I went there and I put out a call for photographers, and I got heaps of interest, picked 3, And to be honest with you, Jama, I got a little bit disappointed because it's been now like 2 months and I haven't heard from them. And for some reason, photographers are really bad on Instagram because I'm like, that's where I like to communicate with you. I've created a pod, stay in touch with me and let me know what's happening. There's no urgency, but just let me know. Like, I've got no newborns now, but I'm expecting in the next couple of weeks or whatever. Nothing. And so I never hear back from them. So that was a learning curve where I think unless I know the photographer or I would do it through another Instagram account, I don't think I'll be just putting the search out for brand reps.
Okay. So, wow. So the moms or anyone who actually pays to become a brand rep, now I'm curious what they get out of it if they're paying to do it. I thought that for them, the benefit would be, getting free products, which, like you said, could be a negative because then some people might just only do it to get free products. So if they pay, what incentive really are they getting from being brand reps? Do you know?
From talking to my brand reps, and I don't know how much they pay, I haven't asked them anything, but it could be a small fee. But the thing is, I think those brand reps still do it for the free products, but I think they're more inclined to take photos, to work with you. So if I told them, can you please send me 2 photos a week or something, they would do it. I've heard stories where brand reps get free products and then they just never post, and never answer, like what happened to me with the photographers.
Yeah.
So I think they treat it like a business in a sense that they either get products back, they get free products. But I've heard also from my brand reps that some brand reps actually charge you to be their brand reps. So, and I don't know if that's a common practice or not, but they said that some brand reps will say, I've got a big following, happy to, represent your brand, but let's say it's going to cost you per whatever month or per amount of clothes. Yeah, so I think for them it's a paid job. I think I think I was just thinking if a brand rep signs up to an Instagram account that, sends them out and you have to pay to be a member there, they must be serious enough to actually not just get free stuff, but actually post and work with brands. So they may organize loops as well, giveaways. They really work with you. And the 3 moms that I have, they're just beautiful. And I sent them, stuff and, we've sort of done 3 months. We finished our 3 months in March now. And then I said, look, I'm so thrilled to have you, stay on, and I will still send you stuff, if you want to go past the 3 months. But I'll understand if you want to sort of move on to somewhere else. And they were all happy to stay. So we've developed a beautiful relationship and they're really lovely. So we chat, aside from just, about the stuff that we're sending or posting, we chat just, my little one's sick or this one's sick or, this what happened today. And my head just goes off to them because I don't know how they take photos of their little kids and they're not blurred photos. My kids are older and they get blurred photos. So I think it's just, you can certainly put the call out and look for your brand reps that way. But I think for me, it was easier to just get, go through that Instagram account that finds them, because they obviously have a database, and they ask them, they say, look, this is the company or this is the brand, this is what they're doing, do you want to be part of it or not? And she sent it out to 3 and all 3 said yes. I was thrilled, love it. And they do have other, so my brand reps do rep for other brands, which is fine, doesn't worry me at all. But as long as I get photos out of it, and we stay in touch and stuff, it doesn't worry me at all.
And for anyone who's wondering, the pictures that you get out of it, you get to use in your listing for Etsy. So it's not just that they're posting on Instagram and saying, oh, check out this new baby hat or, whatever it is you made, but you get to use those pictures in your listing, which we know how important photography is in your Etsy listing. So it's like you're getting double bang for the well, for the nothing,
Yeah.
well, for the product that
Yeah.
you give. So the
Yeah. And I
value of
thought,
the product. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, it's wrong. But yeah, I get so excited about brand reps. But no, and this was funny because I had no idea I'm supposed to like put out like a contract, and I'm doing air quotes here, but contract or
Uh-huh.
something. So I was just like, hey, welcome, thanks for coming and stuff. And they were the ones who told me, so what are your terms? How often do you want to get photos? Do you want us to email you photos that you can use on your website? And they kind of taught me all this. So then so that was another thing because, if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing and you
Yeah.
just find yourselves brand reps who are just after your products, often, you won't send that contract and, you won't do the things to protect yourself. And then you can, it can end up, you losing out on some products or something,
Yeah.
because you never hear back from them. But
Yes.
what I really like with them is that they were so open and so honest. And I didn't send them a contract. Like, there was nothing. I sent them a message. I said, okay, this is what I would like to happen. This is for how long I would like to have you on officially,
Mm-hmm.
and we just did it in a private conversations on Instagram. And I no one signed anything or anything like that, but they were the ones telling me because they've obviously, done it before. They know how it all works. So I was really grateful that they sort of guided me through it. And yes, you're right. So then you get emailed good photos that you can use on your website or in your Etsy shop.
Yeah. Okay. So, now I'm thinking there might be some other Etsy sellers for whom this would be a really good solution to, getting photographs for their product listings. I'm going to look for a resource on how to find and work with reputable brand reps on Instagram. And if I
And
can't
I'll
find
send you
one comprehensive, oh, what?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'll send you the Instagram account that I used,
Okay.
Brand Rep, as well,
Okay.
so you can pop that in as well.
Okay, perfect. And then maybe I'll just put something together about, what to look for, what to watch out for, what you do want to, what to look for in a good one, what to watch out
Mhm.
for, and then coming up with terms for, like your contract, if
Oh,
you will.
I just realized, sorry,
You
Gemma, I
know
just
one?
realized, well, I do know actually there's a website, Mums with Hustle.
Oh,
That's where I actually read
perfect.
about it first because they had a blog post about it. And it was all about brand reps and stuff. And that was where I read about how to go about it first. So
Oh,
I can actually
perfect.
send you that link as well to
Okay,
make your job
perfect.
easier.
Thank you.
So,
And I will link to that. So once I get the link, maybe I'll find the exact article and then link
mhm.
to that in the show notes. So if it's something you're listening to right now and you think it would benefit you, then you can go check them out and see if it works for you. That would be excellent.
Beautiful.
Now, Kasia, oh my goodness, you've shared so much. I'm like, what else is there to say? But there's more. So let's talk about Etsy. Talk to that
Mhm.
person who is feeling a little bit discouraged because they've come on Etsy, they're trying to sell, sales aren't coming, things aren't moving, and they just feel kind of stuck. What advice would you give to that person, especially being someone who you've had, a couple of starts on Etsy and you've, stopped, rebranded, relaunched, and come back again, and now you've hit your stride? What would you say to that person?
Yes, I would probably say what I think a lot of you guests have said already. Look at your shop from a customer's perspective. How are your photos? Do you have a mishmash of products that dilutes your brand maybe? Um, do you have sort of clear descriptions? I think mainly the photos are probably the eye-catching thing that people will sort of navigate to your shop when it pops up in their feed. So photos are probably the biggest thing. And if you're like me and you can't take good photos, no matter how many times people tell you how to take good photos, then outsource them, whether you
Yeah.
barter with another photographer or you get brand reps. But yes, photos are very important. But I think sometimes we need to sort of sit back and just look at the business side of a business. So if your business, if your shop is a business, not a craft hobby, then maybe look at, like, what is your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want to have this shop? Work at your why. And then from there, like your niche, maybe is there anything? Because when we start our shops, we often tend to go the broader, the wider, the better. We want to help everyone, right?
Yeah.
But that's not good because it dilutes your brand. People don't know why they're in your shop, what they're looking for, what you're selling. And so I think sometimes it's better to sort of, like, even if you want to sell different things, let's say I want to sell, things, for home and kids and stuff, maybe try to find, again, something that binds them all together, and highlight that, whether it's, making things out of chunky yarn or fabric or, I'm only relating it to knitting crocheting because that's all I really know. But, find something that binds it all together and then really highlight it. And then another thing is, when you have your niche, really think about who the ideal client is. So, pardon me, really think about who do you want to attract to your shop? And I know a lot of gurus say be very specific, write a, avatar, from the eye color, hair color down to the coffee that they drink. But I kind of think, look at the sales you have. Who comes to your shop now? What are the sales that you're having? And who buys from you. But if you don't have any sales, then maybe just sit down and think, okay, well, I make, let's say, scarves for babies, right? Not scarves, hats maybe. Shouldn't have scarves for babies, but hats for babies. Who will come? Will it be the mom that values, high quality products, who are handmade, who maybe doesn't mind paying a lot, what's her age, what does she do? Just do a very broad outline of your ideal client. And then, or do you want to have sort of cheaper things, like you should never, I guess you should never compete on price, as they say. But sometimes some people do want to sell, like, let's say make headbands, and they want to sell 3 or 4 packs of cheaper headbands because they know that's where often mums are. They can't afford expensive things. So you can focus on that, and that's fine. But just have an ideal client in mind. And it doesn't mean that anyone outside of that avatar won't come to your shop. They might still come to your shop because they connect with what you're putting out there. But your focus will be on a particular client, and then the messages you send out, the photos, it will all click, and it will all be directed to that one particular client, which then connects obviously to your niche and your brand and your photography. It will all be reflected in one. Yes, I think sometimes we just need to do the homework and, the bits that we don't like.
Yeah.
And just really work on the business side. Because I used to make things just randomly, whatever, I made, let's say, a hat, and I thought, oh, that's such a good hat. I'm going to put it in my shop. I didn't waste any time taking photos, even if it was evening and the photos were yellowish and stuff. I'm like, I got to get it out there because just in case someone comes by my shop and wants to buy it, who's going to want to buy a hat that was taken, in the evening with the horrible lighting and stuff? Like, no one. So now I've learned, just wait till you have good lighting and take a good photo, and that's what's going to represent your brand and your shop and the product. And so just be very intentional with your business.
And one of the things I like that you said, before you said this is one thing, not one thing, but one of the things that helped you find more success this time around is knowing your why. And how did you figure out what your why was? Do you think everyone's why is necessarily similar? Because in a general sense, we all want that freedom and that independence without, having to rely on perhaps an employer or what have you for an income. But how do you go deeper with the individual whys that will keep you, that will make it sustainable for you to keep going at the business?
That's a good question, actually. I was thinking how best to describe it. So I think personally, if your why is, so of course you can say, you know, like I want to stay at home with my kids, I want to have more time, I want to work for myself. That can be my personal why.
Yeah.
But that's not something your customers necessarily care about. You know, like, I mean, they might see you posting it everywhere that this is why I've got my shop, because I want to stay at home and I want to work from home. But they're like, yeah, good for you, but what's in it for me?
Yes.
So unless your why is something like, for example, that you source your products ethically, or you support a cause, or, you know, I don't know, you locally source all the products to make your soaps, you know, unless that's your why, aside from the big why, you know, that you want to stay at home, you want to have your business, that little why is something they can connect to. So my why, my big why, is obviously the flexibility in time and having my own business and da-da-da. But then I have little whys, which are, I create my patterns because I know the benefit of knitting and crocheting, especially for a new mom, a stressed out mom. It helped me so much to relax and fill my cup, because it's something you can do virtually anywhere. And even if you spend 5 minutes on it, it helps you, right? Like it slows you down, it relaxes you. And the end result is something that, even though it gives you satisfaction, but it'll make someone else happy, you know, your baby that, you know, you knitted a hat for, or a friend's baby. Yeah. So my why is for creating my patterns is because I want to give that to a mom. I want her to purchase my pattern, which is written very simple and very easy, and it's a quick thing, and I use chunky yarn so you don't spend hours and hours working on this thing and then get disheartened. Right. It's a quick project. I want to encourage you. Do the same. Take some time out for yourself. So that's my why for my patterns. For my knitwear, you know, I value handmade things that are made by one person. They're two hands, it's not outsourced, so I make it in smaller batches. You often have to wait. But if you value that too, and you know that whatever I send you will be so unique and so special that if it breaks, you can't go to a supermarket and exchange it and get another one, you will almost want to mend it, you know, so you can pass it on. So that, you know how things break with time, you know, and we get holes. And remember those cardigans that our grandmas used to knit or whatever, and you wanted to fix it. You don't want to just toss it, you know. Yeah. So for me, that's my why, that I want to create products that are, you know, sentimental and can be passed on and are unique and, you know, have that chunky boho feel. If that's your why as a customer, you will connect to me with that because you value that too. You don't want to buy from someone who outsources things and everything looks the same. And, you know, if that thing gets a hole eventually, I can just order another one and it's going to come back looking exactly like that. Mm-hmm. If you order from me a beanie, chances are the second beanie will have slight differences, or, you know, there'll be something there because obviously it's one person making them. Yeah. So, but I love that. I love that if you got two beanies from me, they would be both, you know, seemingly the same and size-wise the same, but there would be slight differences, you know, and that's what makes them special. So I think have two whys. Have a why that's your personal one, because that's the one that will keep you going. So whenever you have a bad day or you feel burnt out, you know, take a step back and look at your why. That's what I do when I have a bad day. I take a step back, I look around, and I'm like, you know, I'm at home. I can take a breather. I can go to the park with my kids. I don't have to do this right now. You know, like sometimes we have to, but technically you can take a break. But if I chose to give up now or throw it all, you know, away, what's my other option? Well, my other option is I have to go and get a job, and I hate that, and I don't want to work for someone else. So I'd much rather, you know, go through with this and have this horrible day and know tomorrow will be better. But that's my why, bringing me back, focusing me back on my work, that, you know, I like the freedom and flexibility.
Yes. Wow. I hear you. So I like that. I had always thought of having a why for myself. I never really thought of having a why for my customer, because you're right. When you're trying to serve, you know, a particular market, they're not really as concerned with your why and why you're in this. It's more so, what can you do for me? when I go shopping, I don't really care, why the shop exists, or whomever. I want to know if I can find what I'm looking for. So it helps to think about it that way, and to realize there need to be two whys: one for you that will keep you going on, and then one for your customer that serves as the motivation to keep them engaged and connected.
Well, that's how I look at the whys, because you look at the big shops and they may have a cause that they may say, we support, let's say, women in underprivileged countries. So then you think, wow, I love that cause. I'm going to go and buy from them because I support women as well, and I want to help. But if they just say, it's just a big shop, you generally know, okay, they're in it for the money. They may have their own values like growth or whatever. But, there's nothing that connects you with it unless there's a message that connects you with the shop, and it doesn't have to be a cause. It can be just, see fellow mom customers, they may connect to me on, I'm really happy for her that she wants to stay at home because I value this too. So I will purchase something from her because I want to support her, values her why.
Yes.
But generally, and a lot of sellers are not targeting moms, a lot of sellers could be like targeting, whatever other audiences who think like, yeah, that's nice for you that you want to stay at home and work from home and be with your kids. But what do I get out of it? That's how I think of a why. Yeah. So I feel like if you make your why for your customers really clear and you make it about them and why they should purchase from you and not someone else, then I think, you're making that connection and that emotional bond that you have. And whether it's, a cause or something that you support, or whether it's just, like me with my patterns, I just want to encourage more moms to take time out for themselves, learn a new skill. I happen to think knitting and crocheting is fantastic, and you can do it all the time, and you don't have to sit there for hours, you can just do it while they're napping or while you're waiting in a car for a school pickup. So that's my why for my customers, right, who purchase patterns. But I think you have to make it relatable to them and have your big why hanging on the wall just for you.
Thank you for that, Kasia.
Pleasure.
So now, are there any resources that you're using now or tools that you find particularly helpful for selling on Etsy or, running your business?
To be honest with you, Jama, I really just use Instagram. I use my Etsy app. I don't podcasts, I guess. I love listening to podcasts. Like I told you, when I'm doing eyelashes, I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't run, so I can't say I'm running and listening to podcasts. But podcasts, I think. I did a lot of blogs. I read a lot of blogs when I was in my, working at my business side. I did read a lot of blogs, and Mums with Hustle was one of them. And then I don't know if you know Jess from Create and Thrive.
Yes.
Yes, I was a member there. So that was probably it. Now I'm kind of like a lonely wolf roaming. I'm not part of any teams or anything, so I can't say that that's another thing. I'm just very slack with that because I'm so focused on just growing this business that.
Oh no, I hear you. And I want to, I'm glad you mentioned that one, because then I want to link to that, because I think it helps, especially for creative people. A lot of us are naturally, introverts. And so a lot of the resources that other introverts are using tend to work for us, like the podcasts. I too listen to podcasts because then you get to learn a lot, and then you can still multitask when you do. And so, do you have any favorites that you can share with us?
Well, your podcast is my favorite.
Thank you.
It really is. And I think, because I mentioned to you, it's mainly because it's so easy and lovely to listen to. So even when I'm playing with people's eyelashes and I've got my tweezers near their eyes, I can listen to it. And because some podcasts you listen to, like, what? Like, what a shocker.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to put a disclaimer so I don't listen to it while I'm playing with dangerous tools. But no, your podcast is very lovely and helpful and resourceful. There's, the Create and Thrive,
Yes,
Jess's podcast
I
I
will link
listen
to that
to.
for sure. Yes.
And since I mentioned the Mums with Hustle, Tracy, she has a brilliant podcast as well. And it's called, I think, Mums with Hustle. So they're my three favorite ones. I've got a few other ones, but they're just, entertainment.
Okay. And so I will link to those as well, because I think and I like to grow my playlist too. So
Yeah.
that helps me too. So I'll link to those podcasts too. Kasia, if someone wants to get in touch with you, if they want to talk more with you about what you're doing, or they heard something and just have some questions, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
I think either Etsy Conversation on Etsy, or I do have my website, and I do check my emails, but probably Etsy Conversation or Instagram. If you DM me on Instagram or come over, see a post and, comment below there, then usually I'm quicker to respond. As I said, I live on Instagram, so that's probably Instagram and Etsy is probably the best.
Okay, for sure. So I will link to everywhere you can find Kasia online, her Etsy shop, which is NoAndEl. And if you're listening and you want to quickly hop over there, just do a search for NoAndEl, NoAndEl. And also on Instagram, you're at NoAndEl_. Yes. And but I will link to that as well. But for anyone who wants to quickly jump over there, go check out what she's doing. And feel free to connect with her. And of course, there's your website, NoAndEl.com too. So everything will be linked in the show notes for this episode, and people can reach you. I'm so glad we had this conversation. Thank you. There's something else I wanted to thank you for. I don't know if you remember this, but you sent me an email, I think it was last year, when and you recommended someone to be on the podcast, and I never did reach out to that person. So I want to say thank you and sorry. Thank you for recommending someone, and sorry that I haven't gotten around to it. But when I was looking up all the emails from you, I was like, oh my goodness, I never did follow up on this. I know I responded to you, but I never actually reached out to the person, and I thought, oh, you're so horrible. You should have done it at the same time. So I'm going to reach out to that Etsy seller.
Jama, you are I know you must be so busy anyway, and but I'm glad that you remember. That's so cute, because I just, like I said, I love these people, so
good.
I follow their Instagrams and everything. So, but anyway, thank you very much for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for
being my guest. We made it work.
Yes, we did. Now you're wide awake and you can carry on with the rest of your day.
I am, and I can hear my little one is trying to come in and stuff.
So our time is done, huh?
Oh no, I think his dad is up, so he's keeping him busy. It's 7:00 in the morning here, so it's time to soon take him out for a walk. We have to walk him and burn out some energy, because yes, he's very active.
Well, Kasia, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and be on the podcast and share what you did. I think it's going to be very valuable and helpful to someone out there who's listening. I like that you're doing things that are different, because I think just with the way the market is evolving and changing, we need to not stick with just what has been working in the past and is not necessarily working anymore. And things are shifting. New strategies are overtaking the old ones and just being more successful. So I thank you so much for sharing that, about the brand reps and the pods and all whatnot. I will link to all that information so that people can dig in more. And like I said, if you have questions, and you want more information about what we talked about, please feel free to reach out to Kasia. I'm going to have all her contact information, so you can connect with her personally.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so lovely, and I hope I did, add some value. I don't know. I feel like I told you, I get verbal diarrhea sometimes. So I hope it made sense. If it didn't, and anyone does want to reach out, I'll be more than happy to explain. But thank you, Gemma. It's been so lovely.
You're welcome. And you made perfect sense to me. So
thank you.
You're welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.